Some of you are starting in week 1 and then going on to week 3 and back to week 2. That's okay. That's fine. Whatever your preference is, but you should really follow the weeks as that's how they are planned in advance. But that's okay. That's fine. I just don't want you to be too confused. So it should follow a pattern with week 1, 2, and then 3. So let me know in the chat where you are right now. Are you in week 1, in week 2, week 3, or maybe you haven't even started the course? So feel free to add that in the chat so I get an idea. And I'm glad you're enjoying week 3. That's why I said it's okay, but you should really go back and forth so that it's not confusing. So yeah, week 2 is where you should be right now. We're on April 13, which is actually in between weeks 2 and 3. So that's perfectly fine. We did talk about week 2 as well as week 1, and we're going to go over the 2 as well as week 3 for those of you that are working ahead. And many of you are, which is very, very encouraging. All right, so there was a little bit about me. You can read about that. This presentation, of course, is available and you can go through it. It's in the course and it'll appear in the recording of this presentation. What I want to remind you, and I think some of you don't need reminders, is that you can do it. Anyone can do mindfulness because mindfulness is with us 24/7. If we wake up in the middle of the night, we can also practice mindfulness. So it's, I think, very, very rewarding to all of us that we can practice formal or informal mindfulness at any time because it's always with us. It's completely free. It doesn't cost anything. All you need to do is use it. And that's what it's about. I want to remind you that many of you have noticed this as well. We talked about it in week 2, that your goal is not to battle with the mind, but to witness the mind. And many of you have mentioned that noticing is a huge part of mindfulness. So we'll go through week 3 and then we'll go back to week 1. So what's ahead in week 3? In week 3, there'll be less than in weeks 1 and 2 because the focus is mostly on formal mindfulness. Now, when you think of formal mindfulness, what do you think of? Some of you have already discovered it. You've gone through some research and you know all about it, but that's okay. What comes to mind when you think of formal? And the word formal might be confusing, but that's okay. Discipline. Yeah, that's what we think of when we think of formal. Something disciplined. Seated sessions. Intentional. Planned. Lovely. All those are perfectly correct. They're all perfect because that's exactly what it is. It is formal sitting. And there are rules, of course, so that you can benefit, but everyone benefits even with a little time. But there are, of course, research findings on the amount of time, which is 10 minutes a day, where you can get the benefit in a few sessions, which is encouraging. And the benefit, of course, is your brain. Your brain actually changes, and you'll be able to find research on this as to the changes that your brain goes through. So you'll be attending, and you are attending. Of course, certificates are available for all these live sessions, and you'll be exploring formal versus informal in various ways. You will also use Kylo. I don't know if you're familiar with Kylo. I think many of you are, since you have taken courses with me in the past. So there's Kylo. which I'm very excited about. It's completely free for educators, and you don't need Moodle to be able to use it. You don't need any learning management system. You can use it with your students. It's for discussions as well as debates for both pros and cons. And then you will listen to podcasts. I think many of you are finding the podcast very useful, which just shows that many of us, like me, uh, enjoy listening. We sustain learning and we feel that we're gaining a lot more when we listen. Let me know if that's you, if you prefer listening or you enjoy listening, or if you don't, which is fine as well. But there is a chance to be able to generate podcasts. You'll also be able to reflect using RiffBot. RiffBot is also completely free and available to educators, but you need to ask for an account. So feel free to add it in the chat. How do you feel about podcasts? Oh, I'm not audible. I'm sorry about that. Please let me know if anyone doesn't hear me. If one person hears me, it means that there's an issue with, okay, great. So it only takes one person to listen, and then everybody else has to figure it out. So thank you. You like listening. Yeah, I do too. Thank you for that. And then you'll also be reading what's called Aminote. Aminote is also free and available outside of the Moodle, but also within Moodle. The paid version also has the ability for teachers and students to use the podcast. I don't know if you noticed that, but to be able to use audio when they annotate. And the annotation can be done in Teams, which is kind of nice. I think I've gone through that before. So these are the tasks for week 3. All right, so let's delve into formal versus informal mindfulness. And there is a debate on this that I'd like you to participate. I think 2 or 3 of you have already started participating. In order to participate in any of these activities, which is one of the reasons that there are such activities, first of all, for you to discover new things through research-based information, but also for you to have a chance to be mindful as you work. Because when we do these activities, in most cases, we're not able to do anything else but focus on the activities, as well as with the presentations, the audio presentations. You really have to be focused in order to do them. And that's the best way to work, to be mindful when you do anything. And I mean anything. It's not easy, but it's possible, and it does strengthen the brain and, of course, the mind. These are the audio tools. Some of you had problems with Canva. Let me know in the chat if you've had problems with Canva. Some people do in some parts of the world. It doesn't seem to work, like in Cuba, but maybe other parts as well. So in order for you to use other audio presentations, if you can't use Canva, you can use Microsoft PowerPoint, which most people have, with audio, Google Slides with audio. It's a bit tricky. There's Visme, there's Snack. Flipgrid is gone, of course. Microsoft made sure of that. And then there's Active Presenter, Adobe Presenter. If you have any of these, you're able to use them. And this is Aminote that I mentioned, where I'm able to create worksheets for you. Yes, presentations, I do this with my students. I find that they learn a lot more, and I'm thinking about augmented and virtual reality, but in other of my courses as well, where students have to create presentations based on research. So they go into a research tool such as SciSpace or any other tool, and they base their presentations on that. They add, well, formal. So they add their inline citations as well as their references at the end. It's very formal. So they go through an introduction and then they introduce each of the sections. that they talk about, and then they have a conclusion as well as a reflective process at the end. So that's how I do it. And I know they benefit because they find it a lot more engaging, and it helps them learn more than writing papers. Papers don't seem to be the thing or a way to learn these days. But if that's how you learn, that's fine. You can do that as well. So I create an open worksheet for you, and then you're able to download the PDF. But please do not only download the PDF, because you'll miss the worksheet, and that's what's behind Aminote. It doesn't give its name here. It just says Formal Mindfulness Sitting and Brain, and it says work. It's a PDF. It's based on a PDF, but it's called Aminote. Has anyone heard of Aminote? One of the questions was asked whether it's possible. No, you haven't. Great. Let me know if it works well, because I make some changes and maybe that's not a good thing. I also want to know if you're able to use the podcast, the audio. So let me know how that goes. Some people find, well, they thought of maybe adding a bot to speak for them. And this is something that you might want to think about. Would you use your own voice? Would you use another voice for the presentations and for the responses, the audio responses, or not? And I think that by using your voice, you're engaging more with the content, and it's more mindful. Using a bot's voice is not. Yeah, there is a lot of joy. Thank you for mentioning that. Yes, there's a lot of joy when practicing mindfulness. This is the Kylo. This is what the page looks like because I added this image. You can do it yourself. You can even try Kylo and see how it works. You might want to do it with your students. It's very, very engaging, and I think that it's a good way to learn as you socialize with your colleagues and, of course, students with students. Yeah, you prefer your voice. I totally agree. So again, this is Kylo, and notice it's divided into two, and there are subs as well, not just one. You go to the plus, whether the pro of formal mindfulness versus the con of formal. And notice here it says that you have both, and I've added information about both, I think, or maybe just one, but that's okay. You'll be able to find information and decide, and hopefully you'll be on both sides, because that's the idea. The idea is not to only see one side, but to see both sides. So what are the benefits of formal mindfulness? I already mentioned some. And what are the benefits of informal? The idea is not to only practice one or the other, to do both. And how do you develop both? How do you develop both formal and informal mindfulness? Well, some say that you develop formal mindfulness through doing it, and then the informal comes. That means that you sit on a daily basis, daily. It has to be daily. Don't miss a day. And as John Kabat-Zinn says, you just do it. You don't think about it. And that's how you develop the habit, by the way. You don't start thinking, do I want to do it? Do I feel like it? It's boring. I don't want to do it. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow. I'll leave it for another. No, you go into that room, you sit down, and you shut yourself up. As he says, you don't give excuses. You just do it. And let me know in the chat if you've ever done something just to do it, no matter what. You didn't want to, but you did it anyways. You just did it. But forgive yourself. Yes, of course, forgiveness. Definitely no guilt. And you do not want to do that. Definitely not. But have you tried just doing something because you know you have to do it, you know it's good for you, and you'll benefit? Yeah. So try it. That's right. That's right. That's Nike. We can say that because they used it. It doesn't belong to them, of course, but yeah, just do it. That's what John Kabat-Zinn says, and he's had a lot of experiences. And by the way, he's the one that brought it to the West, from the Far East to the West, and popularized it so that everyone could benefit from it without having to practice any kind of so-called religions or beliefs. You don't have to have any beliefs. You don't even have to believe in mindfulness. You don't need to. That's fine. It'll work nonetheless. And also, we use SciSpace. Please review SciSpace. They provided me with the first time, actually, because these are free courses. I try to get sponsors as much as I can, and SciSpace is a sponsor, so please give them a chance and just do a review. That's all they want. I would really appreciate it. That's right about gravity. That's an excellent point, Veronica. Excellent. Okay, so it's clickable. So when you have the link, you'll be able to click on it. And this is life. We are in constant motion, whether we feel it or not. Nothing stays the same. As they say, the only constant thing in life is change. It happens, whether we want it or not. Nothing stays the same. And I don't have to give you examples. I'm sure you'll think of lots of examples yourself, and you can write them in the chat. Everything changes. And that's reality. And that's what we learn to do with mindfulness. Face reality so that we don't have to fight or fly or anything like that. So a lot of things happen to us, right? Things happen. You know, I had a headache. I've never had a headache. I don't remember the last time I had a headache, but I did. I woke up with a headache this morning and I thought, oh my gosh, time for mindfulness. Of course, it worked while I was doing formal mindfulness, but then it came back. So circumstances, what can I do? You know, it just happens. So circumstances happen, things happen, news that we have no control over, almost like the weather, even though we could ask them to control the news. Social media, and we spend a lot of time on social media, whether we like it or not. It just seems to be ingrained into our daily lives. How many of you do not go into social media every day? And when I say social media, I also mean emails. Anyone here not go into their emails on a daily basis, not go into social media, not even for a second, just to watch a little video, a little here, a little there? Anyone? Let me know in the chat. Alan Watts was amazing. Thank you for mentioning that. Can't help, exactly. Just think of the amount of time, just time yourself. I did the amount of time that I spent, you know, first thing in the morning when I should be doing mindfulness. And that's when I started with mindfulness, to spend the very important mornings doing something that would benefit my brain. Yes, Alan Watts. Be like the completely relaxing falling cat. He's had an amazing career. And if you ever get a chance to read any of or listen to Alan Watts, I think you would really, really benefit. So yes, relaxing. Relaxing is not part of mindfulness, by the way. It's very different. Facebook a ton. Exactly. How to avoid it? Well, there are ways of changing habits, like tiny habits. Make it less each day until you don't need it anymore, because we're just kind of used to it. And once we get used to a habit, it's very difficult to change. But as I said, change is perpetual, so it's possible. And then outcomes, we want to know the outcomes of something. What are the results? I want to know now, 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 now. And then we drive ourselves crazy. Circumstances such as health, I mentioned my headache this morning. That was very unusual. Now I can identify with everyone who's ever had a headache because in the past I couldn't. And then there are other people. They say things, they behave a certain way. We have no control over people. And then relationships, of course, good or bad. Thinking, and that's something that we should realize that we have no control over. We can't control our thinking. It's like our heart. Can we stop our hearts from beating? In the same way, we can't stop our brains from thinking. It just generates thoughts. That's what it does. And then feelings, of course, we cannot control our feelings. We just have feelings or emotions, and things come up and we have no control over them. So we have to realize and face facts. We do not control our lives or most things in our lives. So what can we do instead? First of all, realize that you have no control. Once you realize it, really truly realize it, it's very, very liberating. Mantras are great. Of course, they're wonderful, but you don't have to. You can if you wish. So once again, no control over the way our heart beats. Unless you're very special and you can do it for briefly. But most of us cannot control our heartbeat, and we cannot control our thoughts and the fact that our brain generates thoughts, because that's what it does. And of course, other people's actions. We would love to be able to control them. Wouldn't it be wonderful, especially if they're your children, high school children, teenagers? We'd love to control them, or any other age for that matter, or our friends or neighbors. We'd love to control everybody, but we can't. Things happen, we get sick, there was COVID. Did we have control over COVID? It just happened all around the world. Traffic happens. By the way, what you can do during traffic is be mindful of being in the car and waiting. What we need to do is put our mind in neutral gear. How many of you drive? I love driving, by the way. All right. Anyone? Great. I hope you enjoyed as much as I do. Not everybody enjoys driving. All right. So what you need to do is put your mind in neutral gear. In other words, if you're not a driver, what can you do? Instead of running or moving fast, just hold on and be somewhere neutral. Now think about it. To be neutral, it's not easy. But with practice, you can do it so that the movement stops. And the way you do it, you simply pause. And I think some of you mentioned that you had done this. You simply paused and you didn't find it that difficult. Let me know in the chat, what was it like to pause? And if you could do it now, let's pause. Now, pausing means that you're not thinking of anything. You're stopping whatever, you're freezing the action, but you're not thinking of anything specific, and you're not commenting. Commenting is a huge part of our lives. We are constantly commenting, and we can't help it because our brain just generates comments, to make our life interesting. So what we need to do is go into neutral and simply pause. And this pause is the stop. And it doesn't matter how long you do it. The fact that you can pause is the beginning of mindfulness. Whether you pause during an action or anything else, the stop is what is important. No, that's not pausing. Listening is not pausing. It's a little more complicated or complex than that. Pausing is stopping any kind of action. So if you're listening, you're definitely not pausing. But if you stop listening, you do pause. First, you need to listen and then you need to pause. Okay. Yes, it's not easy, but it's possible. With just a little practice, doing a little bit of pausing. I think you would find it easy in the classroom. So, for example, I don't know how many of you teach. You can let me know in the chat if you're a teacher. How many of you have tried pausing in the classroom? There's a lot of noise and you're into the classroom and you want your students to pay attention to you. What I do is I pause. I just look at them without judging. I love them. I do not criticize them in my thoughts. I just pause, stop. So if you've done it in the classroom, you know what it's about. So pause. And don't think of anything, just pause. Not long, but practice. Okay, these pauses are very important. They're breaks. And we need them when things happen, when there's news that we like or don't like. It doesn't have to be bad things. It could be good things too. Pausing for anything, good or bad. Yes, exactly. That's right. It's a grinding halt. I like that. That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, pause. Just stop. Especially when things are hard, but also when they're good. And then maybe you can enjoy them more because usually the good things go by so quickly. That's right. And these are some examples of informal mindfulness. That we can practice, as I said, both informal mindfulness anywhere. For the formal, we need a quiet place because we have to sit either on the floor, on a chair. Lying down is not a good idea because it suggests sleep. So the mind presumes that it's going to sleep. So what usually happens with people, they fall asleep. So I would avoid that. But if there's no other way, then of course, lying down. So what we can do while we're awake and at work or on the bus or waiting for traffic to move, we can do a body scan. Now that's really easy, just going through the body. And it's very, very important. I don't know if you've heard of the Alexander technique, which uses a kind of mindfulness. It's very important to be connected to your body so that accidents don't happen. They only happen when we forget that we have a body and we just move regardless, and then little accidents happen. Like we sprain something or sprain our foot or our necks. So a body scan is really important. If you could do that for a second, just think of one part of your body, like your hands. If you're putting them on your lap, think of your hands. You may enjoy it so much, you may not want to stop. Okay, so focusing on the body is very, very important. And then mindful seeing, when you're looking at something, really look at it. Just look at it, observe it without judging it, just looking at it. And then when you're listening, Antonia, you mentioned that, mindful listening. So when you're listening, and this is informal mindfulness and not the pause. Pause is part of formal mindfulness. is because you stop. When you're doing any kind of informal mindfulness, you are not stopping. You are moving. All right. So body scan, we are moving our minds through our bodies, but we are intentionally moving our thoughts. And that's not formal mindfulness. Okay, there's a difference. With mindful seeing, we are purposely focusing our eyes on something specific. Same with listening, same with breathing. We are formally, intentionally being mindful of our breathing. But we could be moving, we could be running, we could be walking, we could be dancing. And there's a 5-minute exercise, 5 senses that you can do. The link is there. So this is the conscious and conscious dance. Yes, it's mindful dancing. That's right. I don't know if any of you dance. Hello there, wherever you happen to be. So we're focusing on mindfulness awareness practice, where we do mindful actions, paying attention, and we turn this into a practice, into a habit. That's key, whether it's formal or both. As I said, formal and informal go together. Whether you start with a formal and go on to the informal, or start with the informal, go on to the, it's fine, or you do it at the same time. That's fine too. You've got a lot of things you can do, and your time will be filled up with really, really valuable health-wise activities and tasks. So think of how much you can do for yourself. Isn't that amazing? Without having to pay anything, without having to answer anyone, you can just be with yourself and do the following. I don't know if you've ever run mindfully. These are some of the things that athletes learn. They learn it through the Alexander technique, or dancing mindfully, or walking, swimming. Talking mindfully is a bit difficult, but it's possible. Eating mindfully. So important to focus and pay attention to our eating and becoming aware, not judging. And you mentioned this, and you can take a look at this, and turning it into a habit, something you do regularly. And as I said, so easy and yet so difficult, because we need to decide that we're going to do it, and you can do it. So formal mindfulness, we practiced it last week. And I think, how many of you practice during the week? I practice on a daily basis, and I've been doing it for, I don't know, I guess closer to 40 years now. Wonderful. Formal mindfulness means sitting. Excellent. And it doesn't matter how long you do it at the beginning. You try to get longer and longer. 10 minutes is the recommended for brain change. Your brain changes, and this has been documented. And you'll be happier. It won't be easy, because thoughts come in and our thoughts are difficult. But that's okay, because as one of you mentioned, that's part of it. The fact that it's not easy is part of it. That's reality, and that's what we learn to face. Thank you for that, Mike, for otter. Yes, I like otter. All right, so perform with intention. This was also mentioned. I'm very happy that one of you mentioned that in your video. Thank you for that. So what you're going to do is sit back. Now, when I say sit back, I don't mean slouch back or lean back. I mean be with as straight a back as possible. And that might hurt. So you may wish to go all the way back. It depends whether you're used to it or not. Since I'm used to it, I go forward. Yes, now about yoga. Yoga includes informal mindfulness, informal, because during yoga, during the asanas, you pause. There's a lot of pausing going on. You stop, you do the action, and you focus, you pay attention to the position, the yoga position. But it is not formal mindfulness. In order to do formal mindfulness, you need to be still, not to move for at least 10 minutes. And in yoga, there is movement. All right, so I hope that's clear. I know it's hard to accept sometimes, but that's the difference, basically. You need to sit. So you sit, you pay attention to your breath, which is not easy. If you're doing yoga or if you're moving, running, or doing any other activities, it's a lot easier to pay attention to the breath. But when you're still, sitting still, it's not that easy. So what they suggest is that you focus on one area. It could be your belly, it could be your throat, it could be the back of your neck, it could be the back, it could be the top of your head or anywhere on your face. Choose a spot and stick to that spot right through. Okay, don't change it. You can change it next time, but for this time, keep it. And try to avoid distractions. It's very, very hard to be quiet when it's not quiet. So try to find a quiet place. It could be in the morning. I think morning is the best before anybody wakes up, or at night, or both. You can divide it 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes at night, or you can divide it a minute right through the day, okay, for 10 minutes. So it doesn't matter how you divide it, but it's a good idea to have 10 minutes a day. And you bring back to the breath. So you may have thoughts, you may have discomfort, pain. The minute you do, don't try to fight it. Simply bring your thoughts and your attention to your breath. So coming back to the breath, where you decided that you want to sense it. 10 to 20 minutes, 10 minutes is enough. And you can have guided or non-guided, preferably guided. But at the beginning, you may find it easier to have someone talk you through it at the beginning. Remember, if you occupy your mind with mindfulness or mindful actions, it will not occupy you. But if you do not occupy your mind, it'll fill in and keep you busy. So conscious activities with a purpose is really, really important. And we mentioned these, including reading and sports. And this is what you do, exercise. The minute your mind wanders off, you come back. And that's the exercise. The exercise is to be quiet, sit quietly. Thoughts come in, you come back to the breath. Thoughts come in, you come back to the breath. Again, thoughts, coming back to the breath, coming back to the breath. That's the exercise. So don't feel like, oh my gosh, I have so many thoughts coming in. This is terrible. No, that's wonderful. It's wonderful that you have a lot of thoughts because that's the exercise. The exercise is to come back to the breath. Everyone's a beginner, Veronica, which is why it's so wonderful, because you're always at a beginner's place. Every time you practice mindfulness, you are at the beginning, because every day, I'm talking about formal mindfulness, every day is completely different from the previous one. Your thoughts are different. The process of coming back to the breath, the exercise is always slightly different. And it's always different. So we're going to start. Are you ready? And this is going to be guided, but not the whole thing is guided. Some of it is not, which I prefer, by the way, because I get distracted from guided mindfulness. I prefer to have it quiet. But you can do, if you want it quiet, you can just let go of your headset or stop your audio, but come back to it and then just follow.
So establishing yourself now in a sitting posture that embodies wakefulness and dignity, either cross-legged on a suitable cushion and mat on the floor, or on a meditation bench or a straight-back chair, allowing your head and neck to be balanced on your shoulders, and the whole of the torso to be erect but not stiff. Placing your hands on your knees or together in your lap in a comfortable way, and allowing your shoulders to be relaxed and dropped. Letting your pelvis provide a stable base to support your upper body, aware of the sensations of contact with the cushion or the chair. In other words, as best you can, sitting with the qualities of a mountain, fully present in the body, stable, grounded, and with an element of uplift to the posture itself. And when you're ready, becoming aware of the fact that you're breathing, bringing your attention to the belly as it expands with the in-breath and deflates with the out-breath, or to the passage of air in and out at the nostrils, or anywhere else that the breath sensations are accessible and vivid for you, and just feeling the breath coming into the body and leaving the body. Riding on the waves of the breath sensations with your full attention as best you can, moment by moment by moment, and breath by breath by breath, as we sit here. In touch as best you can be with the full duration of each breath coming into the body, and the full duration of each breath leaving the body. Feeling the breath sensations as they flux and change moment by moment by moment. It's best if you can stay with the breath at a particular location in the body for an entire practice period. So if you start with the belly or with the nostrils, then the suggestion is to stay with the breath sensations in that region, rather than to jump around. In that way, we are cultivating a greater intimacy and familiarity with the breath, and a greater stability of attention. So just letting each breath come and go of its own accord, feeling the sensations of the breath moving in and out, moment by moment by moment. Of course, you may rapidly discover that it's not so easy to keep your attention on the breath. It doesn't take long to realize that just as in the body scan, the mind has a life of its own and will invariably take off into the past or the future, planning or worrying, liking or disliking, daydreaming or reverie, impatience or boredom, or even sleepiness. This is totally normal and not a problem at all. When you notice that your mind is no longer on the breath, then noticing what is on your mind in that moment, and then gently letting go of whatever it is, which doesn't mean pushing it away, but just recognizing it and letting it be. As we escort our attention back to the belly or to the nostrils, back to this breath, whether it's an in-breath or an out-breath. And once again, reestablishing the breathing center stage in the field of awareness. And if the mind wanders away from the breath 100 times, as it surely will, each and every time when we become aware that it is someplace else, we gently and patiently note what is on our mind in this moment, whatever it is, perhaps even making a light mental note such as thinking, or planning, or worrying. And without being harsh or critical or judging of ourselves, we simply recognize what is arising for what it is and let it be as we come back to feeling this breath in this moment and begin again and again and again, each time for the first time, each moment the only moment, since our lives are unfolding here and now and only here and now, no matter what our thoughts are telling us. Since it's in the nature of the mind to wander, it's not that you are failing at meditation if your mind doesn't stay on the breath. It's that you're discovering something exceedingly important about the nature of the mind itself, and that is that it waves, just as the ocean waves. So it's never a matter of putting a stop to it, trying to shut off your thinking or make your mind go blank, but rather familiarizing yourself with the nature and the ways of your own mind, and cultivating a deeper intimacy with it through gentle observation, grounded in an awareness that is bigger than thinking, and wiser than thinking, and usually kinder than thinking, an awareness that grows out of our bringing the mind back to the breath gently but firmly over and over and over again, allowing each in-breath to be a new beginning, and each out-breath a complete letting go. So sitting here now, mountain-like, fully awake, with a light touch, resting in awareness, not forcing anything, but as best we can, being fully in touch moment by moment with the breath as it comes into the body and as it leaves the body, and coming back over and over again when we lose touch with it momentarily, as we stay here, sitting. Soon you will hear the sound of a bell to signal the end of this segment of the sitting meditation practice. If you are extending your practice today to include one or both of the following tracks that expand the sitting practice, then just continuing right through the bell with a seamless continuity of moment-to-moment awareness. Otherwise, please use the sound of the bell to mindfully bring this period of formal practice to a close.
Thank you. Thank you so much for participating in this. Not easy, as I said, because thoughts come in. But that's the practice. The practice is learning about yourself. John Kabat-Zinn has called it waking up to life. And that's what we do. We are waking up. So yes, it's not easy because there are a lot of distractions, but these distractions, Lucy, are very, very important because we should be paying attention to them and then coming back to the breath. And eventually you'll see that you have different distractions or different thoughts each day. So you can say, well, what's going, what's happening today? What am I going to be thinking about today? And you'll be surprised at the kind of thoughts that come up. So actually, you're learning a lot about yourself, a lot. And I think that's a privilege that we all have when we do mindfulness. And here, for those of you who just want to have the sound, a 5-minute sound without any kind of distractions by guided meditation or guided practice, which could be distracting. So here, there's an example. It's just a coming and going bell at the beginning and the end for 5 minutes so that you can practice 5 minutes to get you started, or maybe even less. That's fine. And this is what you will see. You will be able to see far more, and things will be a lot clearer in your life. That's what mindfulness does. And if you're using mindfulness in the classroom, there's a bit here for younger learners that you might find interesting. What you will be learning and teaching your students, if you're using this in the classroom, is the 6C skills, which is compassion, care, communication, collaboration, critical thinking skills, and creativity. These come as a result of practicing mindfulness, whether formal or informal. The idea, of course, is to clear the mind as much as possible. It's not going to be possible to avoid distractions. And you're right, distractions are actually what we need. We need distractions in order to cause our muscles to be stronger and stronger. So these are important. And this is how you will go from chaos to a mindful and mindless mind to a mindful mind. That's the idea. We're not going to change what's happening to us. We're just going to learn to live with it as best we can. One of the things that I use for mindfulness practice is insight. I only use, this is completely free, I only use the timer, and I time myself. You can time yourself for 3 minutes, because if you don't time yourself, you're going to constantly be distracted by time, and you'll be thinking about time. Is it over yet? Oh no, it's taking too long. It's forever. This way you'll focus on your practice, on coming back to the breath, and you'll have the timer go off. Now, if you want to continue, that's fine, but the timer will go off whatever time you set. So it's called insight. and you can get it on Apple Store or in the Google Play. What we need, in fact, is to develop a long-term practice. And this can be done with Duhigg. He's got some great ideas. There are videos on that, as well as Matt Cutts. Matt Cutts, and I've tried this. It's absolutely amazing. You do something new for 30 days, 30 whole days. I did that with the news one year. Instead of driving to work with the news on, I had the news off at home, the news off everywhere for 30 days. My life became so much better. Then I went back to news, of course. But you do something for 30 days and see how that goes. And then, of course, there's changing habits. And there's BJ from Learning Center. And then there's BJ Fogg, of course, and his TED Talk that I highly recommend. These are the free sources that you can have for mindfulness, either for formal mindfulness, either guided or non-guided for as long or as little time as you wish. It's completely free. And I'm very grateful for that. They started it in COVID and it stayed. I think I've showed you this before. And here is the reset and pause button and the references. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into the monkey mind. Have any of you heard of the monkey mind? Let me know in the chat if that sounds familiar. A monkey mind. There's an amazing video that I think you will like from Gongay on the monkey mind. Now you may think, well, this is a Buddhist. I don't want to have anything to do with Buddhists. Just listen to him. Forget his beliefs or anything about him. Just listen to him. And you have heard of the monkey mind? Wonderful. And you'll get an idea of how to train your monkey mind. I think it's a wonderful example. We all have monkey minds. And there's also a wonderful saying by Khalil Gibran. I don't know if you've heard of him. Let me know in the chat if you've heard of Khalil Gibran. He says, our anxiety does not come from thinking about the future, but from wanting to control. And that's the key here, wanting to control. Our desire, our built-in desire, this is something that we're born with, or at least we develop after we're a child, to want to control everything. And this is what we learn with mindfulness, because trying to control is very, very frustrating. And this is what we are constantly doing. And mindfulness teaches to avoid. And that is to face reality and stop pushing what we don't want and constantly battle with ourselves. This we want, this we don't want, this is good, this is bad. This constant mentoring is really, really hard on our brain. And we should really that's right, he was Lebanese, get rid of that. So notice here, we go from a cloudy atmosphere to clarity. That's what mindfulness is about. It's going from clouds to a clear blue sky. And this happens during our formal mindfulness. When we start a formal mindfulness, everything is cloggy and full of distractions. But as we keep going and focus on our breath, things become a lot clearer and more pleasant. So the idea, as John Kabat-Zinn mentioned, is work with the mess. Don't get rid of the mess. The mess is part of us. Work with it. And work with distractions. If we can't bear it, pay attention to the breath. It's a chance to get our muscles working and to start seeing things as they are, whether it's light or sound. That's our focus. And work with whatever emotions come up. That's important. And if we have pain, now this is really hard. This is very, very hard, but people have been documented with pain that through mindfulness, they learn to live with it because some pain is chronic and cannot change. Now, we shouldn't even try to change it. Just face it and go back to the breath. The breath is an amazing way to alleviate the suffering that comes from pain, because pain itself doesn't hurt. What hurts us more is thinking about it and trying to get rid of it. Our constant bickering with pain, that's where the suffering comes in. And I think I've gone through week 2 with the body scan. And there's another video here. Yeah, I've gone through week 2. What I'd like to do, I think we've gone over our time actually, but I'd like to go over week 3 so that you can see what it looks like. This is the course. Okay, this is week 3. Notice you're getting closer to the certificate, but there's week 4. I'm in as a participant, so you can't see week 4 right now, but hopefully you'll be able to start week 4 as soon as you finish week 3. So here's the presentation that's available. I'll be able to add it in the chat in case you're not in the course. And notice there are tools here on how to create the videos, the audio videos, and then the formal mindfulness reading with Aminote, Kylo, formal versus the informal. Teacher burnout, very, very important. So we're also going to focus on that in week 3 and on what happens in the classroom if you're a teacher. And then student behavior, how we can actually impact our students' behavior and help improve outcomes. So the classroom pause. This is key and it works magic. I highly recommend that you try it in the classroom, just pause. And then, of course, the end is your journey. And these are private messages where just you and I work together. So feel free throughout the weeks to work on your private posts. You can ask questions, share anything you'd like with me. It's completely private. It'll not be shared with anyone, I promise. And no one else will see it but you and I. So with that, I'd like to thank you. Let me know in the chat if there are any questions or comments. We went a bit over our time here. So thank you. And practice, practice, and practice. Just do it, as they say. And your life will definitely change. So thank you.